Fears of a second wave are gripping Europe after successfully flattening the curve. Leaders are scrambling amid spikes throughout the continent. Germany has now followed the UK's lead, advising against travel to Spain. Despite the clear emergence of new outbreaks, Spanish authorities want the UK and Germany to reconsider. At the start of the pandemic, the British government was accused of acting too slowly. Boris Johnson defended the quick decision with Spain and warned Europe could be on the verge of a dreaded second wave.
These are decisions for families, for individuals about where they want to go, and what we have to do is take swift and decisive action where we think that the risks are starting to bubble up again. And let's be absolutely clear about what's happening in Europe, amongst some of our European friends. I'm afraid you are starting to see, in some places, the signs of a second wave of the pandemic.
Health officials say a recent spike in cases there is very disturbing. We turn to our Frederick Pleiken, who joins us from Berlin. So, Fred, how is Germany responding to these increased cases? What action is it taking?
Hi there, Rosemary. Well, first of all, to put it in perspective, the Germans right now are sounding the alarm bells, and they really have been very, very cautious about all this. And they say one of the reasons is that they had those around 800 infections on two subsequent days at the end of last week. But in general, they're saying right now the big problem that they're seeing here in this country is that they're seeing more infections in a broader area of the country. Germany, like many other countries, has a color-coded system for the number of coronavirus infections. It's green, yellow, and red. And they're saying on the map of Germany, they're seeing more and more districts sort of dipping into the yellows, which means there are more infections in those areas, which makes it more difficult to contact trace where the coronavirus is coming from and thus combat the coronavirus. Now, the Germans are also saying that they're not sure whether this is already a second wave, but they do see that danger. I want to listen in to what the head of Germany's Center for Disease Control, Lothar Wieler, said about this yesterday.
We don't know whether this is the beginning of a second wave, but it could be. It begins with a rise in numbers. I'm optimistic, and I believe that if we stay to these AHA rules, we can stop it from happening. So again, I will say, we can do this. It really depends on us.
The Germans are saying they have it in their own hands, and one of the things that they can continue to say is they believe it's very important to trust in science and to use the measures that have already been put in place to get out of this. Essentially, what the Center for Disease Control is saying, they believe that some people may have gotten a bit lax in enforcing some of the rules that are in place, like distancing, like sanitizing, and of course, first and foremost, wearing masks inside as well. And they're calling on people to do that very, very stringently to try and get the numbers of infections down to what they consider an acceptable level, which is between about 300 and 500 new infections every day. And then the other thing, of course, Rosemary, that has happened here on the continent is that more people have been traveling on the continent, and they are also seeing that as a problem as well. People essentially bringing the coronavirus back with them after having been abroad. And so what's going to start next week is that the Germans are going to make tests mandatory for people who come back from what they call high-risk countries, which includes also the United States. But they also want to make it easier and free for people who return from so-called low-risk countries, like, for instance, other countries in the European Union, just to make sure that they try and quelch what they see as this new rise in infection before it's something that could get out of control, as they say, the way it has, for instance, in the United States, Rosemary.
Exactly. We have to stay ever vigilant, and certainly that's what's happening in Germany. It is a lesson to those of us living in the United States. Frederick Pleiken, many thanks for joining us.